games. It's ScrubGames. Double up. Drop a like, drop a sub, go ahead and subscribe to ScrubGames. Drop a like, drop a sub, go ahead and subscribe to ScrubGames.
How's it going, Scrub Gamers? Welcome back to another video here at ScrubGames, and today we have the next and last of the main sets of the Understand How to Build series for set 4, and this is how to build Kazuda Xiono. So if you're interested in the leader, then stay tuned and keep watching. And also don't forget that you can always like, comment, and subscribe to keep updated with my videos as and when they drop. And also click that notification bell to get alerts for when my videos do drop, so you can watch them there and then, or at a later time that suits you best. So this is a series I do where I basically go over all the leaders in a given set to help you understand how to build them to suit you and your playstyle, and we're going to do that now for Kazuda Xiono, so let's go. So we're going to start with the leader, as Star Wars Unlimited is a leader-based game, so without one you can't really play the game, and they're all going to build your deck around, because like how you got with a base, the essential piece, they're going to be important aspects to kind of determine how you're going to build or play your deck. And the thing is with this is with leaders, sometimes they're very generic, sometimes they're focused on a specific kind of way to play or a theme or a trait. And for Kazuda, he is really not that focused on anything. He does have the kind of a skillless vibe to it, and we'll go over like what that means. And also he does feature the brand new in set 4 alternative deploy. And that means you can either deploy him as a leader in the ground arena, so like the normal leaders we've had since the beginning of the game, or you can use a new kind of deploy where he deploys as a upgrade on a friendly vehicle that doesn't have a pilot on him. So he's got that kind of way to like jump in and pilot a ship. And because of that, he has the traits of pilot and also resistance, because if you didn't know, he is from the I can't remember exactly what the show's called, but he's from a show on Disney. For the resistance stuff. I can't remember. I'll see if I can find it and put it in the comments below. But he's one of those characters from like the new age of Star Wars, as far as I'm aware. And he's pretty cool. He deploys quite quickly, as like probably one of the earliest as well, like Sabine, where he deploys at 4 or more resources. So as early as turn 3, you can drop him out, and he can either come down as a 2/5. So a 2/5 is pretty standard, like same stats as Sabine. Or he comes down as a 3/3 upgrade on a friendly vehicle that doesn't have a pilot on him. So you have like a free lightsaber in the terms of like the stats it boosts, or it comes down as the same stats as Sabine, just in different aspects, different effects. And like I said, his effect is all about skillless stuff, because he's all about making things lose their abilities. So his effect in the leader area is an action where you tap him, and then a friendly unit loses all of its abilities for this round, and then you take an extra action right after that one. So it means you don't lose out on like your action economy, but you get to remove the effects of a unit for this round. So it means for the whole turn, during the action phase and the resupply phase, it loses all its effects. Now this is really good because some cards have like horrible benefit, horrible negatives. Like you might have cards you want to play, but they have a bounty. You don't want your opponent to claim that bounty, or they've got an effect that kind of they got some really good stats, but they got a big negative that you've got to kind of deal with, and sometimes it's acceptable and sometimes it's not, and you think, I won't want to play it. Whereas Kazuda now takes away the negative of that card by making it skillless, so it has no skills. So you can play something for like big stats and not worry about the fact that, say like with Falcon, how it has to tap a resource at the end of the turn to stay on board, or things like that. And he keeps that when he does deploy, because when he deploys, no matter if he's on the ground arena or if he's equipped to a vehicle, he has the same effect, but now it's on attack. So while he's equipped as a upgrade to a vehicle, he makes that unit a leader unit. So either way, when he's out either in a vehicle or on the ground, he's gonna be a leader area, or make the unit he's on a leader unit. And then he has the effect of on attack, you can choose any number of friendly units, and they lose abilities for this round, which means when he swings, you can choose however many number of friendly units you have, and remove their skills for remove all their abilities for the turn. So that means you can shut off all the negative abilities, and you can choose which ones you want to. So you can turn off the ones you want to, and turn off ignore the ones that you don't want to, which is cool. So he makes for a pretty nice one, and very aggressive as well, because he's got a very early deploy, and he can make some very aggressive plays, which is cool. So that is basically a leader. And do remember that as a set 2 onwards, all leaders gain a showcase, and here is Kazuda's showcase. Now this one's a pretty nice one. It's pretty cool. You can see BB-8 just there as well because he's part of the resistance. And yeah, just remember that showcases are just alternative arts. So that means they're just shinier arts that are harder to get to make your deck look a bit more blinged out and basically more a bit more expensive. But do remember that as they're alternative arts, art is subjective. So it's only down to you whether you feel like you like it or not. Because if you like it, fair enough. If you don't like it, fair enough. Because if you do like it, you're going to get it. If you don't like it, you don't have to worry about grabbing hold of it. So that is basically it for the leader. And then next, what we're going to do is I like to appeal to all levels of players when doing this kind of series. That means I want to appeal to newer players that are just coming in brand new to the game and will learn how to play the game, and they've maybe looked at this and gone for it because it's a favourite character or a character you really like. Or it's a veteran player who wants to try out something different and go for like this leader and see what the big benefits is because they know how to play the game. So I like to put in some basic information as well as the information you look for if you're a veteran, because basically like new players, they don't want to go down to multiple videos just to learn how to play a game. It's nice to be able to get it all in one video. So we're going to go through some basics of the game to help out the newer players that might be watching. So if you're a new player, stay tuned. We're going to go over some information that could be very helpful for you. But if you're a more experienced player or more like veteran player, then feel free to check out the description below. That has timestamps so you can skip along to different parts of the video to find what you're looking for, and just skip ahead now and ignore the basic information you don't think you need. So without further ado, let's get into some basic information for the newer players. So first we're going to start with the bases. Just like a leader, it is the essential bit of kit you need to start playing the game. And just like how a leader is important for how you build your deck around, a base is important for how you play the game and win or lose the game. Because the only way to win or lose a game in Star Wars Unlimited is to do enough damage to a base equal to its health points, and that can be shown in the top left in the little blue icon. Now, if you do enough damage to your opponent's base equal to that health total, you win the game, and if your opponent does you, they win the game. Very simple, very easy. There's also other ways to do damage, like as well as like just effects and things like that, and just attacking, and that is by decking out as well. Because in this game, decking out is an alternative win like it is in maybe other games, but it's just another way to kind of go around getting to that win point. Because remember, the only way to win is doing damage to a base. So when you deck out, if you can't draw a card, you take 3 damage per card you can't draw. And since in the game you draw 2 cards during the end, like every resupply phase at the end of the turn, you can take either 3 damage if you can't draw one of those cards, and if you can't draw both of those cards, you take 6 damage. So do bear that in mind. And there are 2 types of bases in this game. There are common bases, which are all 30 health, all 30 health, and don't really feel like differ in much. And then there's the rare bases, which do differ in their health totals differ quite a lot, and they also have effects to compensate with that. So we're gonna get into these bases and kind of go over and see what kind of bases you got on offer, because we've got 4 sets now, and then see which one you might prefer. So we're going to start with the rare bases, because this is the one where it varies a lot during them. And we've currently got 13 rare bases in the game. And I say 13 because we normally get 4 per set, 1 for each color, but we've got 1 aspect plus 1, but we don't really use that. No one really uses that. It's not the best. It has more health, but you lose an all aspect, and that very limits your pool. So with the rare bases, we've got the set 1 ones, and all sets have a theme as well. So set 1 rare bases are epic action focused, so you require them just like a deploy, to take an action to pull off that effect, and it's a one-time use effect, so once it's used up, it's gone. And then we skip set 2, so set 2 didn't have any rare bases, and then set 3 had rare bases, but they were focused on, they're more built for Twin Suns, because they're always focused on your leader when your leader's out, or when it deploys. And considering that Twin Suns has 2 leaders in that format instead of 1 like normal format, then you get double the benefit and even more benefits from that. But given the total, the health totals on them, and basically what they do, giving your leader a stat boost when it's out, depending on the base, or get an effect when you deploy, they're better for Twin Suns than normal format. That's why I have included on them, because they're not as great for normal format, and also because it'd be tight to fit them in. And then we got the last bases we got for the new set, being the ones that are focused on your opening hand and deck building size, and those are the ones at the bottom here on the screen. So the ones from set 1, as I said, they have epic actions, so you need to take an action to use those effects, and they differ in usefulness. You got Energy Conversion Lab, or shortened to ECL, which is the green one, which was the best base for the first 2 sets, because just ambush is a fantastic skill, and it helped for maintaining tempo, dealing your opponent's leader. But then since how the game's evolved, and with suspensions, Target Town has now become the default best base, because it just helps with tempo out, and it's just very easy to just do that 3 damage, take out that first thing that's played, and then just keep up the momentum there. And then for the set 4 ones, we got some varied ones. Like you got ones that increase or decrease your minimum deck size, and that is Data Vault and Firm Oscillator. They basically have an increase or decrease. And also set 4 was the first set to have increased health on a base of more than 30, which is cool. And the way the effects work with rare bases is the more health you get, the more negative the effect, where the less health you have, the more positive the effect. So Data Vault, by having 3 more health on the base, you get an increased deck size of 10. So instead of 50, you're now at 60 minimum. So less consistent, but you get more cards, but you get an extra bit of health. And then from Oscillator, for 3 less health, you get 5 less cards in your deck, so your minimum deck size goes from 50 to 45, meaning your deck's going to be a little bit more consistent for the less health. And with the other 2, they're all about your opening hand size, and Colossus gives you a whopping 5 more health, so 35 base, which is quite big, but the downside is that you have to have 1 less card in your opening hand, means you open with 5 instead of 6 cards. So that could be negative or not beneficial, but it depends on how you feel if that 5 health is worth losing 1 card. And then you got Nebat Village, which is another one that's pretty good, opening hand. And what this one is, the downside is it takes away your mulligan, so you get no mulligan. So instead of ever bases, they can have 12 cards in all, being 2 hands of 6 if they mulligan. Whereas Nebat Village instead gives you an extra 3 cards in your opening hand, but you lose your mulligan. So you don't get to see 12 cards over 2 hands, but you get to see 9 cards in 1 hand, which is amazing. It helps for more consistency. Make sure your opening hand is how you want it. Make sure you start off well, essentially. And if you're playing a combo deck, make sure you can see those combo pieces as quickly as possible. But you might be thinking, opening 9 cards, that's way worth having 3 less health, having 3 extra cards, but you don't get to keep them. Because it's got another effect where at the start of the first action phase, you have to put 3 cards from your hand at the bottom of your deck in an order you choose. So while you don't get to keep those 3 cards, you still make it, have open with a hand of 9 cards to make sure your opening hand has a turn 1 play and good plays and things you want, rather than potentially bricking. So that's the benefit. If you don't brick, well, you're less likely to brick, but you see less cards, and then you basically don't get to keep them. So that is the benefit of those rare bases. But if you feel like none of these rare bases are what you want, you don't really agree with any of them, then you can always go for the common bases, or like they call vanilla bases. I say vanilla base because vanilla is a term where it has, when something has no effect, it's skillless, and that is what the common bases are. They're all just 30 health bases that differ by aspect, name, location, and art. And considering that in set 4 currently, there's no benefit to having a certain base or location, essentially when you go for a base, that's a common one, you pick the aspect you want, and then in that aspect you pick your favorite art and play that. And these 8 here are my preferred arts for the common bases. The top ones are the new Hyperspace foil ones, which you haven't had before for common bases, that come from the new Twin Suns deck boxes from Gamegenic. Really nice. And then you got the bottom 4 being my preferred arts in each aspect for the set and new set. So my favorite arts from them. So those are the bases. So hopefully that's helped you understand the bases and when you want what kind of bases are on offer and kind of what ones you might want. Now we're going to go and talk about a little bit about the aspects. Right, so next we're going to talk about the aspects, because there are 6 in the game, and these are the 6. They all have different icons and colors, and they got their names as well. So we got Vigilance, the blue one. Now this one, we'll go over actually the names and we'll go over them separately. So we got blue being Vigilance, green being Command, red is Aggression, yellow is Cunning, you got black as Villainy, and you got white, that's Heroism. But I think actually, I think the black one, the Villainy might be purple instead of black, but it kind of seemed like black and white to be like either side of the force. And they each have a kind of style of play. Like for example, with Villainy and Heroism, they're quite unique in that not only can they be on their own cards like the rest can, but they can also be attached with the other aspects on cards, like how you see with your leader, having one either the Villainy or Heroism aspect, as well as one of the color ones. So they're unique in that it can be joined up with another aspect. They also have kind of different kind of themes, because Villainy features the antagonist of the Star Wars universe, and they feature a lot of destructive, controlling effects. And then Heroism features the protagonist of the Star Wars universe, and feature more supportive and rebellious effects, because they kind of tie in with kind of how they are in the Star Wars universe. And then for the other ones, we're going to go over and see what kind of playstyle they have, because each one does have a certain playstyle, and it might appeal to you. So if you have a certain way to play, maybe one of these kind of fits with that. So we'll go over the first one being the Vigilance one, which is blue. Now this is a very controlling aspect, because it offers healing through effects and on your base and units, protection in like sentinels to defend your base, or even shields to protect your units, and also removal in terms of like events and just basically taking out units with effects and events and stuff like that. So if you feel like you prefer a more like patient and controlling playstyle, then Vigilance is a perfect one for you. Then next we got Command. Now this is the ramp aspect. Any game that has kind of resources to help like allow you to play cards and things like that will normally have a ramp one, so they can like kind of increase those resources so you can play out more things quicker or bigger things sooner. And Command is that one for Star Wars. Is the ramp aspect allowed you to increase your resources with effects and other cards, and also allows you to play then more things out quicker or bigger things out earlier so you can overwhelm your opponent. So if that's what you like to do, overwhelm your opponent and ramp up, then Command is the perfect aspect for you to go into. Then that comes down to Aggression, and just like the name suggests, is a very aggressive aspect. And it's aggressive through it just wants to throw out damage willy-nilly, like everywhere. So if you feel like you like a fiery playstyle, you like to throw damage at your opponent until you achieve victory, like as soon as possible at all costs, Aggression is a perfect one you pick up, and it is basically like what mostly all the aggressive decks have attached to them as one of the aspects. And that brings the last one being Cunning, and luckily if you do like this one, then good thing is Kazuda has that attached to him on the leader. And Cunning is a jack of all trades aspect, because it allows you to essentially counter anything your opponent might throw at you by having effects to counter it, and even have answers for anything your opponent might throw at your way, and have an answer for almost anything for any situation. So if you like to have an answer to everything and have quick responses to things your opponent does, Cunning is a perfect aspect for you to try, and if you're playing Kazuda, then luckily you have this already equipped. So those are the 6 aspects, and remember, you get a leader and a base, and since your leader always provides you with one of the like hero or villainy traits, and then one of the other color aspects, you'll get an extra one on your base. And given that there are 4 other aspects, 4 other color aspects that you can go on a base, it gives you 4 different aspect combos, and these are the 4. So you're always going to have Heroism thanks to Kazuda and also Cunning. So if you have a blue base, you have yellow-blue. A green base gives you yellow-green. A red base gives you yellow-red. And if you have a yellow base, that gives you double yellow, which means you'll go into the double aspect. And you'll, even though you're losing access to a whole other aspect, you then get to have these double aspect cards that are very powerful. Now, before we get into what the benefits of each of these aspect combos are, first thing we need to do is go over the aspect family, which is a very important part of the aspects. Because when you play in a game or even building a deck, you can put absolutely anything in your deck unless it's suspended. Now, if it's suspended, you can't include it in your deck, but you can include anything unless it is. And that is when the aspect penalty comes in, so not when you're building a deck, but when you're playing the game. So when you actually go to play your deck, the aspect penalty comes in, because what it is, if you don't know, is that any card you go to play, if the aspect on that card doesn't match what's on your leader and or base, then you have to pay an extra 2 on top of its cost for however many aspects don't match. So here I've got a handy dandy guide, because I like to make sure I'm improving this series, so that way it's more beneficial and always like evolving to help out people, make sure it's easier to understand. And there are 3 kind of ways people learn to play. Some people learn by watching, some people learn by listening, some people learn by seeing, and some people learn by doing. And some people also learn by watching. I remember there's a 4th one, and that was it. So I've got 2 ways to cover 2 of those, by making sure I explain it, which I'm going to do in a bit, and also so you can kind of see it with like a nice handy dandy visual here, and then you can always basically learn the other ways by watching a game that's going on, which there is gameplay out there, or even do it yourself by going out and playing a game and trying it out for yourself. Now for this, we're going to quickly explain it, and we've got a nice little leader-based combo. So we've got Kazuda with a red base. So that means we have access to Heroism, Cunning, and Aggression, or in color terms, white, yellow, and red. And now, if we were to play a card that had all the aspects on it matched on your leader and base, that gives us the top box, which means that no additional cost because all the aspects match. So you just pay it for its pretty cost. Easy said, job done. Now, if you wanted to play a card where one of the aspects on the card didn't match on your leader and base, then you have to pay an additional 2 on top, which means if the card costs 2, you have to pay an additional 2 on top. Now it costs 4, that's double the cost to play it out. So that's shown in the second box there. And also do note that all aspects only cover one of themselves. So if you want to play a double red card, you'd have one red covered by your base, but because you don't have a second red, you have to pay an extra 2 to cover that second red, because that first red you have is covered by the red on your base, but you don't have a second one to cover it. So that's covered in the 2 additional costs in the middle box. And then the last one we have is if you have a card that has 2 aspects and neither of those aspects match what's on your leader and base, you'd have to pay an additional 4 on top. So once again, in our example, if you had a 2-cost card, neither of the aspects match, then you have to pay an extra 4 on top, which means now card costs 6. So that's triple the cost and a lot more cost to that card's overall cost, isn't it? So a lot more expensive there. So that's the aspect penalty, and also do note that the aspect penalty might make a card a bit more expensive. Sometimes it is worth it for the card, because sometimes the card is so good that it's worth paying it out of aspect. And the best example I can give is the double aspect events for set 1. They're all 4-cost events, dual aspects, so they're both like the same aspect in both, and they have 4 powerful effects. You can use any 2 of those effects and resolve them how you choose. Now these are so powerful that sometimes you don't want to play double aspect to play them. Sometimes you want to play dual aspect to be able to play them, and you'll pay an extra 2 on the cost. So instead of paying 4, you'll pay 6. But sometimes it's worth paying an extra 2 because the effects are so strong. It's just worth it. So do bear in mind that while the aspect penalty makes the card more expensive, sometimes it's worth the cost because of what the card does. And that's the aspects. So now we're going to go into one last bit of basic information before we head on to the benefits of each aspect, and that is about ratios. So the next part we've got is ratios. And in any card game, you can play a certain amount of copies of any given card. And for Star Wars Unlimited, that amount is free. So you can play up to 3 copies of a card. And now I'm going to help explain when you would want to have 3, 2, or 1 copies of any given card. So we're going to start off with the 3 copies. And this is the ratio to help maximize the likelihood the desired card will be in your hand when needed. And the perfect examples are cards that want to be in you want a card that you can play in your first turn in the game. So cards that you can play first turn, you want to see those. And also cards you want to see multiple copies of over the course of a game. So resupply is the perfect example because it's a more generic one. Because if you're playing command or green, you're playing it because you want to ramp. And one of the easiest cards to play in ramp, for ramping green, is resupply, because you can play either side of the force. Or either side of the game. I keep saying force because I just keep thinking about force for it. But you can play on either side of the game, both on the heroic side and the vanilla side, because it doesn't have either of those traits, so it's not locked to either side. And you can play it as early as turn 2, and you can just play it out, just play it, put in player's resource, and you're now ramped up, which means then you're going from your turn 3 into 5 resources instead of 4. So it's such an easy card to play, and you might want to put 3 copies in your deck, so you can hopefully see it by turn 2, so you can start ramping as early as possible to either deploy your leader earlier, or even to go ahead and just play out more things, especially with Kazuda. If you play this out, you could then go from turn 2, you'd have 3 resources, you can then ramp up to 4, and that's the turn now where Kazuda can deploy. So you can then, if you played a space unit turn 1, you can then equip it as an upgrade, and then you're hitting harder because you just deployed Kazuda a turn before. So that's the 3 copies. Now for 2 copies, the good example I've got is Rebels Fall, because this is the ratio for cards that aren't great to draw early in the game, but you still want to go through multiple copies over the course of the game. So my example is usually boss cards or high costing cards, and Rebels Fall is a perfect example because it's a high costing event, and in this game you have removal, and the more costly it is, the less restrictive it is, but the less of its cost, the more restrictive it is. So for less you get, for more you get, less is more and more is less kind of thing. And this is perfect because even then, on removal events as well, usually you get things that say like non-leader effect. Well, not non-leader unit. So it means you can't hit leaders with like majority of events or removal effects. But Rival Sword is unique. Well, not unique, but it's strong in the fact that it hits any unit, even leader units. Now the compensate for that with this great effect is that it costs 6. So early in the game it's not going to be great. And usually if you draw early, you're either resourcing it, which means you lose access to it, or you're keeping it in hand, which means you limit the amount of options you have in hand because you're holding this, so you can use it when you can. But if you have fewer copies of it, so like 2 instead of 3, you can hopefully not see it early, but see it later in the game when you want to use it to take out your opponent's unit. So that is the 2 copies of a card, and that brings us to the last one, being 1 copy of a card. And this is usually the ratio for cards that are added to a deck in order to counter a specific situation. And they're also called tech choices because they're like teched in to essentially deal with something. And the prime example I use is restock, because it's added to decks in order to help our control decks. Because Hard Control do exactly what they say in the name. They want to focus on control. They don't focus on anything else other than keeping control of the game throughout the game. And this means they're not going to be trying to push damage because they're trying to make sure they're keeping in control. And since you can only win by doing damage, they'll rely on deck out damage, which we explained before, which is where if you can't draw a card, you take damage equal to the number of cards you can't draw, and that's either 3 for 1 or 6 for both of them. And they usually rely on this. They rely on decking you out, so you can take the deck out damage to kind of win the game. But if you use restock, this allows you to put up to 4 cards in the discard pile back to the owner's, and then put them on the bottom of an owner's deck in random order. So it means you can put back the cards. And given how the game works, you can put itself back as one of those copies, so you can then loop it over and over again. I mean, you never deck out, and now Hard Control decks have to focus on a different way to push damage instead of deck out damage. So that is the example there. So hopefully now that's helped you understand when you would want to have 1, 2, or 3 copies of any given card to help when it comes to deck building. So that is it for the basic information. Now we're getting into the benefits of each of the aspect combinations. Right, so first thing you're going to do is start off with a double aspect, because the thing with double aspect is you lose access to a whole other aspect because you're playing the same aspect in your leader and base, but you get access then to these double aspect cards. And while we only have 10 in this game at the moment, we've had 3 from the first 3 sets and 1 from set 4. They are still some powerful cards, and it varies on the aspect, which one's the kind of what options you get. But double cunning is probably one of the strongest, or the strongest double aspect out there. But remember, when it comes to your leader, you got to think about when it comes to double aspect, are the 10 cards you get in that double aspect worth it and work well with the leader? And if their leader is more specific on a certain kind of trait, maybe not. But if they're more generic, maybe they can be used. And where Kazuda isn't really focused on anything, it's just focused on negating the skills on a unit to remove the negative of the card. It can be useful, but it is very generic in that it's not doing anything for a specific trait. It's just got a way to kind of turn something that has negative effects into not having them, which is good. But that means it's very generic. So it means you can probably go pretty well into double yellow Kazuda because you got for some nice tools, and we'll go over them now. So from set 1 we have Bodhi Rook, Katina Bouncer, and Cunning. These are all very strong cards. Bodhi Rook is good for its stats to its cost, and has a nice effect to then rip out from your opponent's hand, or lucky opponent's hand, and rip out any non-unit card in it. So it could be an upgrade or an event to kind of rip that out and get some free like a free plus where you put a unit on board and you discard something from the hand. Very good. Not a vehicle to equip on, but then you don't have to focus too much about that because Kazuda can be played out either way. And you got Katina Bouncer being a nice one. Here's a high costing at 5, decent stats for its cost, but the main thing comes from its effect, where when played you can bounce a non-leader unit back to its hand, which is nice disruption, especially if your opponent plays out a unit, and then puts a pilot on it, bounce it back and they've lost that pilot because the pilot doesn't go with them. And then you got Cunning, probably the best of the, I would say the best of the double aspects events, and it's because it offers 4 effects. All 4 effects are fantastic almost all the time. You can either bounce back something that's 4 less power back to the hand, so bouncing. You can give a 4 power boost to a unit, so power boosting. You can exhaust 2 units, so like control by like tapping things down, a bit of a exhausting. And then you can make your opponent discard a random card from the hand, so a bit of hand control. So you've got all good options to disrupt your opponent and almost good for all situations. And it makes it one of probably the best double aspect event in the game. And that's what we got for set 1. So very strong ones off the bat for set 1. And then for set 2, we got New Adventure, Final Showdown, DJ. Now, DJ has recently been suspended, so you can ignore that. And even then, it wouldn't be a good choice for Kazuda, because you might be thinking, why is it in there? Because it's not double aspect. It is because of its smuggle. But then again, this card was only best put in for hand, but I like to make sure I include all the double aspects, just in case you're wondering, where's this one, why is this one not there? At least I can explain it if I put it in. So with the 2 you can actually play from set 2 now, which is New Adventure and Final Showdown. These are pretty nice. New Adventure is pretty cool in that it can return a non-leader unit that costs 6 or less back to owner's hand, and the owner gets to play it back for free. What this means is you can do some like cool things like with the Millennium Falcon, the free cost one for set 1. You can play it out, attack with it, and since it comes inactive, so you can attack with it straight away, you can then New Adventure it back out, back in again, and then swing again with it to get a little bit more damage. Or even reuse some cards that have one-played effects, like say Bodhi and Katina Bouncer, by bouncing them back out and back in again to trigger them again. So very nice card, very cheap, and very cool for some nice, cool little combos. And then you got Final Showdown. Now this is like an all-in final gambit, because what it allows you to do at the cost of 6 is ready everything you control, so well, all units you control, And then at the end of the end phase, well, at the start of the regroup phase, at the end of the turn, you lose the game if you haven't won yet. So it's like an all-in final gambit where if you don't win after using it, you then lose. So you have to make sure you are going to win if you do pull it off, if you do want to try it. And then for step 3, we got 3 more, being Jar Jar Binks, Chance of Palpatine, and Impropriety Among Thieves. Now these are pretty cool. Like Jar Jar Binks probably isn't the best because it's not too bad for his units, but its effect can hit both you and your opponent, because when it attacks, it does 2 damage to a random unit or base. So it can hit yourself or your opponent, so you can either get very lucky and do a lot of damage to your opponent, or you can essentially hit yourself, which is not great. Then you got Palpatine, which is probably pretty good stats for its cost, a 2/6 on a 4 cost, and anytime you play, each token unit you create comes in play ready, so it can attack straight away, so that's pretty nice. And you can make tokens from itself, because when it attacks, if a unit left player's face, which is very easy to do with like Cunning with the whole bouncing and things like that, or just taking things out, you then create a Clone Trooper token, which is a 2/2 unit, and that could be inactive straight away, so you can attack with it. It's pretty nice there. You also got Impropriety Amongst Thieves. Now this has a wall of text, which is not as bad as some games, but then it's a wall of text to explain what it does. But essentially, what it allows you to do is choose a ready non-leader unit that both you and your opponent control. So one you control, one your opponent controls. Switch control of them, end the turn, switch them back. Very simple, but they got a long wall of text to go and go through it because you got like non-leader stuff like that. But this is pretty nice because you can take control of when your opponent's active units, but remember they both have to be active. They can't either of them rested, so you both have to have active units. And then if you take your opponent's, then take them and ram them inside to take them out, but your opponent doesn't get rid of yours. Essentially, you'll get yours back, your opponent will get theirs back. So you can do it as a way to get rid of your opponent's units, or even use a stronger unit against them to kind of maybe finish the game and stuff, to just get some more better swings in. So it offers like some nice options, but it's basically it's kind of situational. If your opponent needs to have an active unit and you need to have an active unit to be able to pull it off. And that brings the last one in the Mandalorian. And this works pretty well with Kazuda, because he's going to go for a more space focus one. Because the Mandalorian's got a nice option, because remember, he's a pilot, so it means he can be an upgrade or a ground unit. He offers some nice effects. So you can either play in the ground unit as a 5/6, and then rest up to 2 ground units, which is pretty solid. Very good for what Cunning wants to do. Or you can pilot him on a vehicle, and then when you do, you exhaust into that same arena, which is pretty nice, and give a nice 3/1 boost to that space, or that vehicle that you put on. Because remember, vehicles can be space or ground. So those are the cards you get if you go double aspect. Now, what are nothing there you want to kind of remove the skills off. Still, they're very strong cards. You got Bodhi Rook. You got the first 3, Bodhi Rook, Cutting Bounce, and Cunning being very nice cards for nice control. You got some good ones in new adventure, like bounce out cards to basically get more use out of them. Mandalorian being a solid unit for either like an upgrade on the vehicle or a ground unit, and then even Palpatine being a pretty solid one there as well. So this could be a good way to play double aspect, mainly for like Cunning, because you can give a boost and mounts and control it out. So you can always go ahead, and I feel this is a pretty good way to play Kazuda. Now, before we go and see what kind of other aspects offer with a different base, we're going to first have a look and see what Kazuda offers himself. Because remember, he offers you the Cunning cards and also the Heroic Cunning cards. And in Heroic Cunning, you got some pretty nice ones, like you got Cartel Turncoat, Fireball, Millennium Falcons as some of your space units. Some good space units, not all of them, but some of them. And they offer some nice things, because remember, they all kind of have a downside, like Cartel Turncoat has a bounty, which allows your opponent to draw a card when they take it out. Fireball has ambush, but then during the regroup phase at the end of the turn, it takes 1 damage, which you kind of don't want to do. And Millennium Falcon comes in active when you play it, but during the regroup phase at the end of the turn, you need to tap a resource if you want to keep it on the board. So those are all cards that are good but have a negative, and Kazuda can turn those off. So it means that turn off, so now Cartel Turncoat doesn't have a bounty, so if it dies, you know it's not going to claim anything. Fireball will not take any damage during the regroup phase, and Millennium Falcon will not need to tap to be able to keep it on board. So very nice, some very good cards that then Kazuda can just take off that negative to his benefit. And you've got some other good units, some good ground units as well you can play, like Ahsoka's very nice, very good one for the new set. Play it, make your opponent discard a card, and if it's a unit, you can tap something, so you've got benefit to hand control, and even disruption. Then you've got R2 being a pretty good turn 1 play that can help you find things you're looking for, dig through your deck a little bit quicker, and be a solid unit. And then you've got Han Solo, which is also good, being a very good ground unit, or even a good upgrade as well on a vehicle. Very solid there. Then you also got some nice events as well, like Spark Rebellion and Bamboozle. Bamboozle will be a nice way to kind of hate on pilot decks, so like knock off those pilots, or even knock off upgrades off unit and rest it, so disruption, and can be played for free via its alternative way to play. And then Spark Rebellion is a very nice hand control one, just look at your opponent's hand, ditch whatever card you don't want out, easy job. And then in the non-heroic side, because remember it is a non-heroic side, you have some pretty nice cards here as well. You got some nice ones like pilots if you want to go for space cards, and even nice ground units in like Independent Smuggler. You also got some pretty good ground units like Crafty Smuggler, Guerrilla Soldier, and Contracting Hunter. Now, Crafty Smuggler is good because it comes in turn 1 and shield as well, so it's like protection. Guerrilla Soldier is really good because when it comes down, it does 3 direct damage to your opponent. Now, if any of that damage hits your opponent's base, you get to restand this so you can attack that same turn. Really good, potentially push 5 damage to them if they put all that direct damage on base, and then can swing to their base with it as well. Then you got Contractor Hunter. Now this is a really nice one because it's a free cost 4/4. It's a very good, very good stats for its cost, and has ambush. But when the regroup phase starts, it defeats itself. But luckily, Kazuda can take that skill off, so it means that during the regroup phase, it won't defeat itself, and then you still have a free cost 4/4 in the next turn, which is really good. So if it doesn't die by its attack, then it's going to survive thanks to Kazuda be able to take that skill off. So he has a nice, really nice benefit of hitting off those negatives and making it into a, so they don't have to worry about that anymore. So you get the benefits of the card without the negatives. Also, Cunning has a lot of good events. You got some nice ones. You got ones that boost your attack, which is like surprise strike and breaking in. Both allow you to attack with a unit and give it increased attack power. So surprise strike gives it an extra 3 power, while breaking in gives it an extra 2 power, but also saboteur, so sentinels and shields cannot prevent it. You also got some nice free costs like a Waylay, allowing you to bounce any non-leader unit back to the hand. Just bounce it straight back. Really good card. And you got Naldo 2 of them, which can allow you to play, cheat out things a little bit quicker. And as long as you can only control 1 unit, bring it out with the same trait. So a very nice way to like cheat things out a little bit quicker. And so some good combos with that. So that's just a taste of what the kind of things that Kazuda offer you. And next we're going to see what the benefits are when we go into a different base. So first thing we're going to do is cover Vigilance, because this has a lot of like kind of nice healing and defense, so you can kind of grind it out and just survive a lot longer. And you got a lot of good space units if you want to deploy Kazuda as a upgrade or as a pilot on one of these units. So you got good ones that go up from turn play. So you got turn 1, you got a restored arc, which is nice. Solid unit, solid stats on the unit, and also has a restore, so it heals the damage from base when it attacks. You got Concord Door Interceptors and Red Squadron A-Wing, or X-Wing, which both have benefits. So Concord is a nice sentinel that doesn't hit for much, but when it's hit into, it hits back a little bit harder. And then you've also got Red Squadron X-Wing, which when it's played, you can do 2 damage to itself. And if you do, you draw cards, you can kind of draw more cards, dig a little bit deeper. And then you got Obi-Wan's Aether Sprite for a turn after you can deploy Kazuda. And it's got a nice effect where when it's played or when it attacks, you can do a damage to yourself and then 2 damage to another space unit. So you can kind of do damage to your opponent's space units to take him out, and do it every time, do it the same turn when it's played and when it attacks as well. You also got some nice like ground units or like pilots. So you got Hera and Cassian, some pretty nice pilots. Hera giving some restore as well as some solid stats as a pilot, because she is a pretty good pilot. You got Cassian as well, offering like a bit more draw when you attack, when it's upgraded on a vehicle. You then get to go ahead and mill the top card of your opponent's deck, and if the card you milled costs 3 or less, you get to draw cards. So you get a way you can potentially draw more cards, and you got some good ground units and good ones in like Yoda and Vigilspectors. Vigilspectors giving you a sentinel in the ground arena, while Yoda gives you some healing and also draw if it's defeated in the ground arena too. Some pretty nice units there. And now in the non-heroic side, the thing about Vigilance is that most of its best cards are in the heroic or dark side, so it's mainly in those sides. But the normal side, there's still some good cards for it as well. Now, if you want to focus, I've gone a bit more focused on space because that's where you might want to go for Kazuda due to his like deploying and the his deploy being into a vehicle and also being ones like that more focused on vehicles that you can basically put him on. And you got some pretty nice ones. You got some good sentinels for either arena, for ground or space, in Perimeter ATRT and System Patrol Craft. Both are 4-cost sentinels that you can have out, and then even because they're cost 4, you can even play them out the turn Kazuda can deploy, and then deploy Kazuda on them to then boost them up as well. You also have the, I can't remember what it's called now. Oh yeah, it's a Cloaked Star Viper. That's the one. This is one that also can be played out on the turn that Kazuda can come down. And the nice thing about this one is when it's played, it gives you 2 shield tokens on itself. So that's 2 shields to protect itself. And you can deploy Kazuda on it to then go ahead and just, turn it into a pretty Pretty strong unit in space, and then also have it double protected with 2 shields. You also have Survivor's Gauntlet, which is a pretty nice one, which allows you to move upgrades about, or either on your side or your opponent's side. So you can move Kazuda from one ship to one vehicle to another to get some more bigger swings, and just keep doing that and just have that nice benefit of even disrupting your opponent's upgrades as well. And you got some good pilots as well, like Astromech and Trace being nice little pilots that can then heal off your units to keep them around a little bit longer, which is really cool. We're also giving a stat boost. You even got Evidence of Crime as well to kind of move around upgrades and even take control of them so you can gain some of your opponents as well. And then also Takedown being a nice one, where as a good example, some of the removal you've got being some nice cheap and one of the better ones as well. So that's what you got benefit from Vigilance. You got some nice healing and nice protection in Vigilance if you want that to kind of make sure you're not going too aggressive but have that kind of flexibility. Vigilance is a good one to go for that. So next we have Command, and this is the aspect where you can ramp up and also overwhelm your opponent with lots of units or big units. And it offers some very good stat units, both in pilots and vehicles for Heroic, and it's got a very good aggressive way to play with the Heroic side because of some of the units you get. So for good turn 1 plays, you could either have Battlefield Marine or Phoenix Wave Squadron, which don't have any skills, but they're still free powered units you can play as early as turn 1 to kind of start hitting hard. You also have ones for your turn 2 play, being like Admiral Yularen and Blue Leader as well. Blue Leader being a space unit you can ambush that can even switch arenas if you want to pay an extra 2 on top of its cost. And then Yularen as well is a nice unit, offers Restore, and makes it so all your Heroic units get an extra 1 health to survive a little bit longer. Very good there. You also have some very good pilots like Luke, Poe, and Chewbacca be a nice one, whereas Luke upgrades on a pilot, and if that unit would be defeated, he can basically just drop himself in the ground arena, so eject him out into the ground arena. You got Poe, which when he's played, you can create a space unit, so a little X-wing token, a token unit. So an X-wing token, and then you can either then attach him to that unit, to a different vehicle, or keep him on the ground unit, which is pretty cool. So a nice little flexibility there with some solid stats as well. Then you got Chewbacca. This is like a kind of anti-control one, because whether he's down as a ground unit or equipped on a vehicle, he makes it so itself or whatever he's equipped onto can't be defeated or bounced by enemy card abilities. So your opponent can no longer instantly defeat it with an instant defeat effect, or bounce it back to hand to kind of disrupt him. And given his stats or his boost that he gives to a unit when he's equipped, make him a pretty strong threat. And then you got U-wing reinforcements. So if you go to the later version of the game, the latest turns of it, you can then go ahead and use this to kind of spam the board with multiple units or one big unit, because they can look at the top 10 cards of your deck and play up to 3 units with a combined cost of 7 or less from among your deck. So you can potentially get 3 units or 3 small units or 1 big one, which is really cool. And then in the non-heroic side, you have some pretty nice stuff as well. Like you have some ever good pilots like Clone Pilot and Jarek Yeager. You also have Hu Yang as well, which can give you something in either arenas. Like if you play a space unit turn 1, you can play Hu Yang next turn to boost that space unit. Then you have something in each arena, so that way if your opponent wants to deal with the space unit, it's now boosted. So either they deal with the space unit, which is boosted, which is harder to take out now, or they try to take out Hu Yang to then lower the boost on the space unit, but then the space unit's still there. You also got some pretty nice space units as well, vehicles. So you can got the Eager Escort Fighter. This one allows you to ambush the same turn, and it hits for hard, but it's got barely any health at 1. And then you even got the Clone Combat Squadron. This is a pretty nice one that can count the same turn that Kazuda can deploy. And the benefit of this is a 4-cost 3/3. It's not the best stats for its cost, but for every space unit friendly space unit you control, it gains an extra 1 power, so it can get even bigger the more figures you put out in the space. Then you also got some good events as well. You got Resupplies, Way to Ramp, which is cool, so you can get out Kazuda a little bit earlier. So you can get out turn 2, which is cool. You even got Dogfight, which allows you to attack with a unit even if it's exhausted, and it can attack again, but it can't attack bases. So you can attack with exhausted units at your opponent's units to get control a bit more. You even got Eject, which is a pretty nice one. This allows you to, if you ever got a unit and it's got a pilot on it, but is soon or is close to being defeated, you can always use Eject to kind of detach the pilot upgrade from the unit into the ground arena and then draw a card. Now this can be used both offensively or defensively. So you can either eject your own pilots off your units into the ground arena to save them and also draw a card, or you can eject your opponent's pilots off their units to the ground arena, so that way you make that unit less powerful that they've put on, but they still have it, and you draw a card. Or just if your opponent's if you're just a little bit off for taking out, you can just eject the pilot off so the unit dies, but then the pilot stays, and you can deal with the pilot a little bit easier. So that's some pretty nice cards in command, pretty nice combos as well. And also with eject, you can even eject, like put a Kazuda onto a space, like a vehicle, a swing with it, then eject it off. So that way, if it's about, like, you can then have it in a different arena, then separate it. So it's still about, it's 2 units rather than just 1. So if you want to play command over on your opponent, it's pretty good. You got some pretty nice stuff in there, and it's a good way to play Kazuda as well. And lastly, we have aggression. Now, this is one where you can be very aggressive with it and offer some very nice ways to be aggressive. And it's got a lot of good space units to focus on our pilot strategy. Now, you've got some really good turn 1 plays, especially for space as well, in like Green Squadron A-Wing, Anakin's Interceptor, Black 1, and Red Squadron Y-Wing being some solid units. They all have 3 health, so they got some good bulk to them, and all can hit pretty hard. You got Green Squadron hits for 3 because it has Raid 2, but it doesn't hit back much defensively. You got Anakin's Interceptor, which just hits for 2, but if you take the more damage you take to your base, the stronger you can get, because once you hit 15, you can, once you hit 15 damage to your base, it's then hitting for 4 instead of 3, or 4 instead of 2. You also got Black 1, which, if he gets upgraded, he gets extra 1 power, and where you control Poe anywhere on the board, being as, which most likely is going to be a unit, and it can then deal 1 damage when it attacks. And then you got Red Squadron Y-Wing, which is going to get hit for 1, but when it attacks, you then deal 3 indirect damage to your opponent, which can either go however they choose, but you're still then swinging for 4 damage, 1 guaranteed on whatever you're attacking into, and the other 3 your opponent could spread out however they choose. So, still hitting for a lot, but is out of your control where it goes. Now, you've also got Red 5, which is a pretty nice one, which is a higher cost unit of 3, but 4/3 for its stats, which is pretty good. And when it attacks, you can deal 2 damage to a damaged unit. So if something's got damage on the board, you can add to that by just swinging with this one. Then you've also got some pretty nice like pilots like Biggs as well. And Biggs is a pretty nice one where you can upgrade onto a unit for, I think it's 1. And then you can essentially just give it a free 2 power but only 1 health. But depending on what kind of like trait the unit has, Biggs can give a benefit to it. So if it's a fighter unit, it gets over 1. If it's a transport unit, it gets extra 1. I think it's health. Yeah, extra 1 health. And if it's a speeder, which is more ground unit 1, so it gets grit. So if you put on one of these many fighters here, it's going to have overwhelm, so it's going to pierce through your opponent's units while also taking out his units. And or you can get, if it's a transport unit, you can get an extra 1 health, so it survives a little bit longer, which is cool. Then you also have some pretty nice events as well. Like you got Trench 1, which is probably best used with Kazuda if he uses effect to negate, basically make the unit lose all its skills. So what essentially does for 1 is allow you to attack with a fighter unit. So it has to be a fighter unit, which is what any of these space units here are. And for this attack, it gets extra 4 power, so a huge 4 power for this cost of 1, but then gains an on attack. Now the on attack is making your opponent discard 2 cards from the deck, and then you deal unpreventable damage to the unit that's attacking with Trench Run, equal to the difference between power. Which means if you mill 2 cards in your opponent's deck and it hits say 2 costs, you take no damage, you're fine. But if you swing your opponent and they mill 2 cards that say 1's a 6 and 1's a 1, that's 5 damage difference between them. So you got to do 5 damage to unit, which potentially take it out. But Kazuda has a nice way to kind of mitigate that, because where it makes the unit lose, if he uses his effect to make the unit lose its abilities, when it gains on attack, it won't gain that attack. The on attack won't trigger because when it loses abilities, it can't gain any new abilities. So you'll essentially with Trench Run with a unit that's lost its abilities thanks to Kazuda, you essentially attack with it as long as it's a fighter and get 4 power, and that's it. It's a 1 cost 4 power swing, which is like a more powerful surprise strike, which is amazing. And then you also got Hate That Ship. Now the thing with Hate That Ship is you allow your opponents to create 2 TIE Fighter tokens, which are 2 1/1 space units, but then you get to play out a space unit from a vehicle unit from your hand, and it costs 3 less, which means you're paying out something for 2 less than normal. So for 2 resources, you're paying out basically a 4 cost. 4 costs cheaper. So you're paying out you can pay out 4 costs in turn 1 with They Hate That Ship, which is pretty good. Pretty good. So those are the heroic side ones. And then for the non-heroic side, you got some pretty nice cards here. You got Tarkin as a pretty good one to play, because if you go for a vehicle focused deck, it can come out as early as turn 2, and then weighs out. He's got some pretty good stats at a 2/5, and gives every friendly vehicle an extra 1 power and overwhelm as well. So that's a huge boost to your vehicles. You also have vehicles like Singing Fangfire and War Juggernaut, which is pretty nice. Singing Fangfire is good where it can knock off your opponent's upgrades, so their pilots or upgrades they put on. And then War Juggernaut's really good in that you can play it cheaper thanks to they hate that ship. You can play it on 4 resources out using that, and this ignores the negative of that event. By where that event gives your opponent 2 1/1 tokens. When War Juggernaut comes out, you can choose any number of units on board and deal 1 damage to one, which means the 2 units you give, you take them out with War Juggernaut, and then you have this War Juggernaut out 2 turns earlier, which is really, really good. And also, it can come out the same turn. You can with that combo, you can bring out the same turn Kazuda can deploy. So you can then deploy Kazuda on it, and then it's this huge unit that your opponent's gonna have trouble dealing with it that you played way earlier. And then you got Champs to Do List. This is a really nice card because the thing with this is, if your opponent plays Command and they ramp, you can use this as a way to like catch up and give yourself a solid unit at a 5/4 for it. Because it basically, when it's played, if your opponent controls more resources than you, so if you stick it for where your opponent still resources or they ramp up, you can play this out and then ramp from the top of your deck if they've got more resources than you. And you also have some pretty nice events and upgrades as well. Like you got Hotshot Blaster, which is, even though it's an aggression card, this is basically usable in every single version of Kazuda, because you can smuggle it out, and its smuggle aspect is different to its normal aspect. The smuggle aspect is Cunning, and you mainly going to want to smuggle this in because by smuggle it in, you do 2 actions 1. Where playing it normally, you do 2 actions that cost 2. So if you not play it normally, you're equipping it for 1 to give a 2 power boost, and then the next action you can attack. So that's 2 actions just to equip and then attack. Whereas by smuggle it in, you get both of those in one go, because when you smuggle it in, you equip it, and if you play it by smuggle, you can then attack with that unit. So by smuggle it in, you pay 2 more for it, but you get to do 2 actions in 1, which is a lot better than waiting 2 turns to do it cheaper, or 2 actions to do it cheaper. And then you also got some nice events, like you got System Shock as a way to knock off non-lead upgrades and then deal damage to that unit, so knock off pilots a little bit easier for cheaper with event. You got Stay on Target, which is like a mini surprise strike, because you get attack with a unit, but it has to be a vehicle, so you get attack with a vehicle, and for that attack, it gets extra 2 power, and if it does damage to a base, you get to draw a card. So it's a pretty nice one there. And then you got Open Fire as an example of like where you can do damage by just through events. So that's aggression, probably, yeah, a pretty good way to play Kazuda. A very aggressive way to play it with some nice, cool combos, and a pretty good way to play him as well. Also, do remember that Heroism cards are not just equipped with other aspects on cards, they're all on their own cards as well. And you got some pretty good ones like shown here. You got R2-D2, Resistant X-Wing, Millennium Falcon, and Speed's Masterpiece as just a few examples of some good Heroism cards. R2-D2 being a nice little pilot which you can then put on units even if they already have a pilot, and then allow you to put more pilots on, which is really good. So you can deploy Kazuya and deploy Kazuda on a unit, then put R2 on to just increase it and have more pilots on that one unit. So put all your eggs in one basket essentially. Then you got X-Wing, Resistance X-Wing is a nice turn 1 play, where there's a turn 1, so a 2-cost 2/2 unit, that if you put a pilot on it, it then gives extra 1/1, and it gets stats from that pilot, so it gets even stronger. So you can Resistant X-Wing, then put R2-D2, and that's a 2-cost 4/4 on turn 1, which is fantastic. And then you got Millennium Falcon and Speed's Masterpiece is good ones, like Millennium Falcon is another one just like the R2, which can have more than the normal 1 pilot on it. And for every pilot on it, it gets extra 1 power. And the Sabines a nice one because for every other aspect you have on the board in terms of units, you get a benefit when it attacks. You can get healing from blue, experience from green, damage from red, and then untapping or tapping down resources with yellow, which is really cool. So some nice options. There's not all of them, but there are some more, but these are just probably the best examples among them. Then that brings us around about to the end of the video. And what I like to do when doing this now is improve it, because one thing people did start asking for the first 2 sets of the game when I was doing this is what my preferred aspects will be. And since that was being asked quite a lot, I decided to put into the series, because that way it's improving and then it's giving what you're asking for. And this is what I would have for my preferred aspects for Kazuda if I want to play it. So if I want to play it, I would probably go mainly for double yellow, because you get some really cool benefits, like Cunning is one of the biggest things. You lose access to whole other aspects, but you get access to things like Cunning and some other good double aspect cards. A very strong way to play a very aggressive game. But if I wasn't playing double yellow, and I didn't say I couldn't get Cunnings and stuff like that, I would probably play it red, because you get some really cool things like Trench Run, getting a huge benefit, and like almost no negative, thanks to Kazuda taking the skills off it. And I have some pretty solid combos like the War Juggernaut with the Hate That Ship kind of thing. Some cool things in red, and to be very aggressive and just push for a pretty nice, fun aggro deck. So those are 2 kind of ways I would prefer to play it. Probably like more more go double cunning because I love the double cunning aspects, like on all the cards in it, and then red because it offers some really cool combos and some nice benefits to cards that normally have negatives. And that is the end of the video, so hopefully it's helped you understand how to build Kazuda, and also some nice handy-dandy advice to help you with it, and then also so you can play it however you like. And that is it for the set 4 leaders. So we do still have to start deck ones, those will come out next week, but we're done with the leaders in the given set. So hopefully that's helped you understand how to play them. And do remember that you can like, comment, subscribe to help out the channel, because we're still on our way to 2,000 subs, because we're just under 200 away. And I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.